Yeah, I made a mistake and crouched down when I shouldn't have, and she was behind me and she just took her opportunity and did a full kill bite, thinking she had my throat. So she was suffocating me, but she'd happened to get my upper arm because I'd actually was taking a photo and my ear went to my shoulder, protected my neck, and the angle she came in at, she thought that's where my throat should be. So I wouldn't be able to talk so much if that happened.
Welcome to the Enrichment Project, Path to Purpose, recorded by the mad talent at Solid Gold Podcasts. It is a series of unfiltered and insightful conversations with some of the most remarkable purpose-driven human beings who have all achieved, created, inspired, triumphed, or challenged, and we have a great deal to learn from them. It is a quest to uncover and articulate the steps along the way to help you on your own journey of purpose. I am your host, Richard Wright, and I am delighted to have you with me. Thank you for the gift of your time. Let's dive straight in. I couldn't be more excited for today's conversation. We're going to be getting into some really wild stuff. So I'd like you to strap yourself in. We're going to be talking about falling off the back of a filming vehicle, breaking a back whilst filming a rare Black Panther. We're going to be talking about getting medevaced airlifted from the Masai Mara. We're going to be talking about being mauled by a cheetah. All this and more is going to come. But my guest today in the studio is Shannon Wild. She's a National Geographic photographer, BBC, Netflix, you name it. It's just going to be the most wild story. Shannon, thank you so much for being with me today.
It's an absolute pleasure. It's a little concerning hearing all of those things compressed together in one timeline.
You should be concerned. Oh, you should be concerned. It's a wild story. That's why I'm so excited of being able to just chat to you, because I only know snippets since I've been following your journey. Been extremely grateful to have met you once. We're still going to do that book, Shannon.
Yes.
But it's anything but normal. Your story is anything but normal, and it's amazing. Yeah. And I think that's the part I'm so excited about, is there's so much of purpose in it. And, we're talking path to purpose here, and we're talking about what that is and how you got to where you are now. But I know that with any path to purpose, the end part, or where we start this chat and who you are now, is not who you were many years ago. So can we get back to that moment of where it all started?
Yeah, of course. Being in an animal or wildlife related industry, I can trace back to as a kid. I was definitely the kid that was running around chasing bugs and trying to catch lizards and all those things. So I feel like it's been there from the very beginning, that fascination, back in Australia. So if you hadn't picked up on the on the accent, I am Australian. A fascination with animals in general has just been a constant in my life. I don't feel like I learned it or got it from someone else in my family. It's just something that's always been there. And then as I've got older and become more aware of that, I then started to make conscious decisions to try to actively involve that into my life.
Okay, great. So before we go any further, where are you right now?
South Africa now. So this is home. So I live near the Kruger National Park, essentially. So it's the northeast of South Africa.
Okay, and then tiny little place called Hoedspruit.
That's correct. Yes.
Right.
Just outside of Hoedspruit.
Right, and it's hot.
Yeah, I'm sweating. And it's not from the questions yet.
Yeah, not from the questions yet. Okay, cool. So I'm probably sweating as well, just because it's the exhilaration of actually being able to chat to you. I mean, it's just such a privilege. So let's drill down to that first thing. I think it was reptiles. Am I right in saying that? The fascination. How did that happen?
I honestly don't know. I do remember as a young kid being really fascinated by dinosaurs. And so, of course, reptiles seems to be a natural evolution of that's what I had access to. And I mean, they're incredibly fascinating. So I was never the kid that was scared of them. I was the kid chasing the lizards and the snakes and all the things. And I did grow up on a farm in Australia for most of my childhood. So I did have access to that kind of thing. And then as I became a young adult, I started to have pets, like pet reptiles. And it kind of just went crazy from there, to be honest. I became completely obsessed.
Obsessed.
Yes.
And your parents were supportive of the reptiles, whether in a bedroom or was there a room for them?
They were not supportive. My dad is a traditional farmer type, so best snake is dead snake. But he did come around, so I had pet snakes. So I left pretty much at 18. So they weren't subjected to it in the house. I don't think I would have been allowed, to be honest. I don't think my mum would have been able to sleep at night. I did dabble in reptile rescue as a young kid. I have a picture of when I'm maybe 8 years old, and I'd found an injured blue-tongue lizard, which is very common in backyards in Australia. And so I can definitely trace back to that. But being a very harmless lizard, that was fine by the family. Yeah.
So my own experience is I'm still that child who's scared of the snakes. That's me. And my eldest daughter was going through a bit of a tough time at school a couple of years back. And part of the incentive was, I tell you what, if you can manage doing this, we're ticking off days, then what would you like? What's the incentive? And she said, I want a bearded dragon. I was like, okay, because nice. I'm pretty sure that you're not going to be able to do this thing. I was like, okay, I'm safe. It's not going to happen.
Our bearded dragons are adorable.
So, it's great. So we still have George, and we've had George for about 4 years now, and George is amazing. So that's my experience. But George stays charismatic. In a terrarium.
Yeah.
They're amazing.
Yeah.
And he's like really yellow. It's beautiful. So George is cool. He can stay.
Aussie species.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Okay. So then, 18, you moved out. Lots of snakes, and then?
So I became very involved in the herpetological community in Australia. So I was very active with, people with like-minded interests. And so at that time, from 18, I was working as a graphic designer. So I'd always had a creative side that I wanted to explore. And growing up, was not sure if I wanted to channel that into graphic design, or do I want to go into, say, veterinary medicine or marine biology or something like that. And I went down the path of graphic design, and I actually did that for quite a while, 9 years in the end, and that progressed into having my own business and consulting as an art director. And then, so when I had that business, I bought a camera, and it was specifically for, client-related stuff. But, of course, I started taking pictures of my pets. So that's my lizards and snakes. And basically just taught myself how to use it. I mean, we didn't have YouTube or Google yet. Tutorials. So it was old school, lots of mistakes, learning that way, lots of books and magazines. Yeah. And
going to the library.
Yeah. And then I found that I actually enjoyed that a lot more than the graphic design. So I started to consciously try to build a business out of that and wean off graphic design. But of course, reptiles, I don't know if that's something you could make an entire career out of, just photographing reptiles. So I started a pet photography business and ran that for 7 years while I was in Australia, right up until I left to move to Africa. So that I could actually turn that into my business and get to run around with dogs and cats all day. And then...
So that's a part of this journey I didn't know about.
Oh,
actually.
right. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, and then
Okay.
outside of that, I would do editorial and commercial work, which was more sort of wildlife related or the reptile stuff. So I'd shoot for reptile magazines and that kind of thing.
So always still coming back to the same thing.
Yeah, I
So
mean, the
I love that.
wildlife is always the
been that
ultimate
thread.
passion for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I quite like the concept of photographing my pets, and now I'm going to start photographing other people's pets, and there's your living. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of this journey, this path to purpose is helping people to understand that certain things that you're passionate about, you're obsessive about, and for you it's the snakes and the reptiles. And I think what stops some people is they don't think that they can earn an income in that thing. As you have said, I don't think anybody can earn an income in just that. So let's take what we love about that and kind of go somewhere different with that. And I know there's a lot of that within your story, which is why I'm so thrilled to have you. You've made it this far, probably because the topic resonated with you. If you're wondering what the show is all about, listen to the trailer at the start of the season and find out how this show is going to help you along your own path to purpose. You've stumbled on a project that is all about purpose. Find out why the guests are all so vastly different, but yet all have so much in common. Hop on board this journey with me, follow the Enrichment project so that you don't miss out on a single episode, and share it with, well, everyone. We are all looking for more meaning in our lives. If the show speaks to your identity or the identity of your brand, consider sponsoring a season. Let's make the circle bigger. Back to the episode, and thanks for listening. So what next?
So definitely diversification was the key for me because it is so niche. So once I'd been shooting long enough and had paying customers long enough that I felt confident that I was in a position to teach others, and that was maybe 7 years in. I then started running pet photography workshops and animal-related photography workshops. So that was, another way. Writing books. So specifically, I have a pet photography how-to book. And actually, before that, I published a book on reptiles, so it's completely unrelated to photography in any way. But yeah, my very first book. So I just found constant ways of trying to generate little bits of income, because as a freelancer, it's incredibly difficult to have any sort of stability in one thing. So there's the driving factor of I want to be around animals, I want to work with animals and have that as my focus, but, also needing to support myself. And so how I can use my skills, so as a graphic designer, and that kind of thing or knowledge, for example, like on the reptile side or the photography side, put that into a book, and then something like that, it just has sales here and there. So it's a passive income that helps along the way. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've done a lot of that along the way.
You have to. That's necessity, right?
Yeah.
Necessity is the mother of all invention, pretty much. Right. And so personal life, did you married, relationships, have somebody with a shared purpose, shared interest at that time?
No, not at that time. So I was married before. He was in a completely different industry. So there was no overlap in interest there at all. He was very supportive, but it was not something that we could share. Whereas now I do have that, and it's actually life-changing. So I'm extremely grateful for that. So
for you, I'm gonna step in here and just say for those of you listening, we're going to have a follow on to this chat, and it's going to be with Shannon and Russ, who is Shannon's husband, and they share a passion together. So he's the videographer and Shannon is the photographer, and that's another discussion and a conversation I can't wait to get into. So that's what's coming next.
Yeah.
Okay. So this was a relationship. It wasn't like that. It's quite hard, I think, when it's something you're so passionate and so obsessed about. Actually.
Yes. And as it was building as well, I mean, we'd been together for quite a long time, and I was just dabbling in and finding these passions and being able to actually turn it into a business and a lifestyle. And so it was starting to take me away a lot. And of course, there were a myriad of other reasons, but
they always are.
Yeah, that is life. So that ended when I was 30, and at 34, I actually was very.
So that looks like I just have to say this, and for those of you who are listening to this just on Audible, not the video version, Shannon looks 34 today. In fact, not even. Wow,
definitely not.
Oh wow.
I don't feel like it.
No, you don't. I can't wait to get into that part too. Okay, so what was the trigger? What made you leave Australia?
So I was in quite a good place business-wise. So I was actually quite restless. Sorry, my cat is in the background. I don't know if you can hear it.
It's not the cat on the wall behind you. It definitely doesn't sound like that one.
Yeah.
So I'm hungry.
Yeah, there he goes. He has some food. So,
Okay.
yeah, so I've totally lost my train of thought now.
The trigger that made you leave Australia. So you're in a business position that you were looking good, and it's time to make that big step.
Getting to a point where it was pretty stable, as stable as it can be for a freelancer. But the pet photography business was going very well. I had 2 other photographers on staff at this time, so I could service other states in Australia, and I was traveling all over. Positioned as the most expensive pet photographer in the country. It was, it had built up quite nicely. So, but like I said, I was getting very restless. I wanted something else. I'd done that for 7 years, which was amazing. But I was craving more of the wild stuff, which I was just doing in pieces. So I would, for example, go on like a conservation related or rehabilitation related trip. So for example, the Cayman Islands, there's an endangered blue iguana there. I went to go and document that. And that's the kind of thing that was really getting me fired up and quite motivated. And I wanted to do more of that. But of course, I wasn't really sure how to transition into that. But I was very aware that I wanted to move overseas and take my photography to the next level. Australia, I'd felt like I'd had really great connections there, and I was doing good work, but it was very contained, and I wanted to expand my audience, expand my portfolio, and really be working with wild animals as a priority.
So very intentional.
Yeah.
So a very intentional.
Yeah.
It's a T-junction,
I mean,
one way or the other way.
I'd felt that way for a while, so it was kind of on the back burner of my awareness in terms of, opportunities, and I was really dabbling with the idea of I want to move overseas, but I don't know where. And I grew up on documentaries my whole life, and knew at some point that I would certainly visit Africa, but it wasn't a conscious decision that I was thinking I was actually going to move there and live there. So when I was thinking about moving, it wasn't actually my first thought. I was thinking, do I move to the US and base there? What's going to make sense from a business and networking perspective? but I was open, very open to the idea. And as fate would have it, I met my now husband prior to leaving Australia, and he's South African. And so I was just in this place where I was just ready for a new adventure. So I made some very like rash last minute decisions, sold everything I owned other than my camera gear, and really on a whim just decided to move to Africa without having been there before.
Wow.
Yeah.
and I dig that so much. This is rad. It's this real sense of this is what gives me meaning and purpose and joy and happiness, and I'm just going to go with that. And it's a huge risk. That is big. That's huge. That's huge.
Yeah. And I'm generally, I don't feel like I'm generally that person. And, you know, from the outside, I'm sure that seems quite reckless. But
so I know some more of your story. I know some of what's coming. I'm going to say that you are that person when it means that much to you. It's just, boom, okay, here we go.
Yeah, I guess I don't see
Shannon.
myself as that person. I feel like I'm super conservative, but I'm not.
I think you follow your purpose, you follow your passions, if you ask me. I can't wait to get
Maybe
to that
it's all
Black
internal.
Story.
I just, you know, I end up doing it, but it's the battle going on in my head.
Wow. No, it's amazing. Especially from the outside looking in, I mean, to me, it's just so obvious that is what you're about. It's amazing. It really is incredible. Okay, so now we are in Africa. So there's a lot here. I want to get some of the juicy stuff at the end. So let's hit some fast forward here. Just a bit of.
Yep. Okay.
What happened next?
So turned up to Africa. Didn't know anybody. Was still getting to know Russ, my husband now. Actually, that's a whole other story. That was very quick. So he was my husband then as well. Basically, we met very quickly, fell in love, got married in Indonesia a week after we met in person. Went to Africa and I never went back.
Okay, sorry. I just need to go back. I really don't see myself as that person who makes those like reckless decisions. I don't know where that comes from.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So now, you can hear it coming back now, can't you?
Thank goodness that worked out.
Yeah.
He wasn't an axe murderer.
Well, it did. And he is just, for those of you listening, I can tell you, I can vouch for him. He is just the most amazing man. He is phenomenal. His energy, I love his energy. He just got this chilled.
Yes, very, very chilled, but
such
a hard worker and so talented. So talented.
No, amazing. So for me, it's a match made in heaven, if that thing exists. It's you. Okay, so and then what I know is that the work just flowed in because you already had a name out there, and freelance is so great. And
so I mean, I left an established career of 10 years in Australia, and I turned up here, and of course, nobody knew who I was, my work. I didn't have a body of African work yet that was relevant to this industry. So I went back to working for free again. And that was for the first few years, actually. So there was a lot of like having my power shut off and the little bit of food I could afford going off in the fridge and trying to get to free jobs, but not knowing how I could get enough money to put petrol in the car to go to that job to do for free.
Wow.
It was nuts. I mean, we were completely broke. And, we were both really trying to establish ourselves at that time. So you can imagine it's incredibly stressful because it's not like one person is freelance and one has a stable job. We were both freelance, both in the same industry, both really trying to establish and both not working. So we did a lot of free work in those first few years, which actually led.
I can relate.
Yeah. I mean, it's the freelancer life for sure.
Yeah, same as being a speaker. I mean, you think you've got this great product, you know you do, you know you're good at what you do, you know you've got a good story, but nobody knows you, and they're not going to take a risk on paying money for this guy they've never heard. So same thing. It was a lot of pro bono work, a lot of paying it forward, and it's a grind. It's a proper grind.
It really is. I mean, I did it to the point of complete exhaustion and very much to the detriment of my health, which I still suffer from now.
Because of that. Wow.
Yeah, I got very sick. I mean, close to death sick. I just overworked my body, but also picked up a lot of parasites and bacteria and just things from the environment that I was working in. Lack of nutrition, a lack of clean water. I mean, I had holes being eaten in my stomach, and so I still have issues with the lining of my stomach. And I mean, I got to the point I couldn't keep food down, and my whole...
Where was this?
That was in Botswana, and then I just kind of kept pushing and getting sick and all different things. And then I eventually collapsed in Kenya, in the Masai Mara, right at the beginning of a really important job, to the point I didn't even get to meet the rest of the crew who'd come all the way in from the US. And this particular project was them coming over to film me filming. So it was like a documentary about me. I was out for the count. So that was not ideal. But
so
yeah,
you were on your own?
Yeah. So I was at this beautiful lodge in the Masai Mara, but the main section of the lodge, and then you have, where everyone gathers for food and reception, kind of to meet. And then, of course, all of the rooms are like spread out and peppered through the bush. And this particular area is, there's a lion pride that kind of live in that area. So it's the kind of situation where, for example, at night, you can't walk to your room without security with you.
It's not fenced off.
No. But this was daytime. I was so incredibly sick that I got there. And I mean, that's obviously getting to Nairobi first, and then it's a light aircraft, and then it's a long, bumpy ride to get into this really remote area. So I'm already like, oh my gosh, just, trying to survive the trip to get there. So I'm in the room. Russ goes to lunch, basically to meet the crew, and, strict instruction, just rest, don't do anything. And I also had, my body was breaking down. So I had a mouthful of ulcers, so I couldn't eat. I couldn't even talk. I couldn't articulate words because I have pieces of my tongue missing because it was just, it's horrific. I mean, I couldn't breathe without
a mess.
Agony. It was horrible. I should have been in hospital, of course, but, it's like, oh, I have this responsibility, and, finally I have this job and that, and, anyway. So I am feeling terribly bad because this crew has come all the way over, and I thought, okay, I just at least should meet them. I mean, I can't eat or anything, but I could go over and kind of like, hi. And so I think it was maybe 200 meters walk from my room to the main area, something like that. And, through the bush, and I maybe got halfway, and that was it for me. So I was found, I don't know how long later. I mean, that was at the beginning of lunch. Everyone had their lunch. So it was maybe over an hour. And the manager was coming back through and found me face planted on the dirt, and I had gravel embedded in my face. I'd been there so long. And thankfully no lions had come through. They'd been through the day before, so that would not have been great. But yeah, and I was medevaced to the capital, Nairobi, in hospital. And I just, it was just all these things. And then, of course, I found out I had a heart condition as well, which I didn't know about, but made a lot of sense. So yeah, without going into too much reckless detail, but I did check myself out of the hospital, go back, finish some of the work, do another job after that. and then got
Don't do anything
really
recklessly.
even more sick. And then I was stuck
Funny
in
that.
bed for 6 months. Yeah. Back in South Africa, and literally couldn't do anything. Actually I dropped so much weight, I was just bone.
Stick figure.
And my mum
Sure.
jumped on a plane and from Australia, came over and looked after me for the first month of my recovery, which I essentially was just sleeping the whole time anyway. So, yeah.
And Shannon, at no point, through all of this struggle, this real grind to try and earn an income and this passion, this obsession, did you think, you know what, maybe this isn't me. Maybe I need to find something more stable with an income. Maybe this isn't it.
Of course, it flooded through the mind, but not genuinely, because I can't even picture myself not doing this. So it was very much, I just have to, I'd be so incredibly unhappy, and I would rather take the hard road and have the reward of that than take the easy version and know that I'm going to be unfulfilled. At that time, the first 3 months, I didn't even have any mental clarity. So I honestly didn't care what happened. There was nothing. But once I got that back, then it was very much trying to have my body catch up with my mind. I was ready to get back out there, and that was the slow process of the body kind of catching up. I was getting, other people's immune, like globulin injected into, I'm sure you probably know all this stuff. Like I had no immune system. Yeah.
Jeez. So they had to start from scratch.
Yeah.
So I can completely relate to that. So going through some ultra endurance races like Ironman, like 24-hour races with brain cancer, and the body is just done. I'm done.
Yeah.
I haven't prepared for this, and the mind is like, no, you're not. I'm not ready for that. It's, you need to catch up. You need to catch up. So I get that. It is incredibly frustrating.
Yeah.
And I got angry. I got so angry at my body for being so frail and for being so ridiculously useless and weak. Because my mind was just still so strong. Yeah, it's a tough space to be in.
Very, very tough.
And then your first big break, was there a moment of Shannon Wild?
Well, to be honest, it probably should have been that shoot in Kenya. But luckily, because of course this crew was coming over to make a documentary about me.
About you.
But that did come later. They were gracious enough to film Russ just by himself while he was there, and we set up another shoot, and that took a year before we could do that again. And I was able to choose a different location, so I chose Komodo Island. So, silver lining, I got to go and film the largest lizard on the planet instead. So that was pretty good. So
I've seen those shots.
Yeah.
And
so I'm on the beach
wild.
filming.
They're wild.
That was that documentary.
So close. It was like right there on the beach. Yeah.
Yeah. And
so for those of you,
I was just going to say, like, for people that don't understand reptiles or reptile behavior, it seems crazy. But just like any animal, they have body language that you can read. You can read whether they're tense or relaxed, or if they're going into like a hunting mode or starting to get aggressive.
Mode.
I've worked with reptiles almost my whole life now. So that's my language. And they were completely chill, just curious.
So that shot, I just embedded in my memory, that shot of you like so close and taken from the side of you and the dragon, right?
Yes.
Who took that?
Russ.
That's an amazing shot.
That particular shot that you're talking about, I'm pretty sure. So Russ was filming, and then there was a crew filming. So I'm pretty sure that angle, was any stills that I have was Russ. Yeah.
Okay. So now I'm going to put this in. If you're listening and you are not already following Shannon Wild on Instagram, you've absolutely got to do that. It's the most gratifying and the best way you can support somebody who is so passionate about her stuff that she's prepared to put herself through hell. And the least that we can do is actually just go and support. But it's not going to be support. It's going to be mind-blowing food for you. I think the thing that so just before I get sidetracked, it's Shannon_Wild.
Double underscore, actually.
Double underscore.
Two.
Okay, so it's Shannon_Wild. Thank you for that.
Just to be difficult.
Instagram. And the best part for me is that, Shannon, you're not like some of the other wildlife photographers that just go for the big stuff. So the Black Panthers and the leopards and the whatever else is. You also get into the little stuff and these little moments. I think one of my favorite pictures is that chameleon with the avenue of the baobabs, or is that Madagascar?
Yes, Madagascar. Yes. Oh my gosh, I was so happy to get that shot. So it's a giant Malagasy chameleon. So it's the biggest chameleon. So it's crossing the road, and while it's not the busiest road, there definitely are like donkeys and carts. There's four-wheel drives with tourists coming through. So But
it's a dirt road.
Yeah, it's a dirt road. So it's between some very sort of popular national parks and that kind of thing. And it's just this alley of massive baobab trees. I mean, it literally looks like a dinosaur otherworld location. It's stunning. And so the fact that he was there, I mean, I was straight on the ground shooting to try and get that
stop, drop, and roll.
Exactly.
Right.
But then
and the lighting was amazing too. It was perfect.
Yeah, and that's literally the one opportunity I wanted to, because we were going through there to another location, and I wanted to stop again on the way coming back to do some different time of day. But actually, when we came back, it was about 3 a.m. in the morning, so it was pitch black.
Wow.
So that was a one-off, unfortunately.
Absolutely perfect.
But yeah, he was adorable.
A lot of what you do.
Sorry?
A lot of what you do, I think, is one-off. It really is.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing that I love about your work.
Chance.
No, they don't. And I think the other thing I really love about your work is your use of lighting. So I'm not a photographer. I'm not an expert by any means. I just really enjoy wildlife and I enjoy great photography. And that's so much of what I think you managed to capture so well in your shots is the lighting and the colors. It's to me,
yeah.
I think you're spectacularly good at that.
Thank you so much. I mean, that
Oh, wow.
is my style for sure. That's how I see the world. It's vibrant and, lighting and composition as well. From my graphic design background, I feel like it's something that I subconsciously think about as I'm shooting. That's very much my natural style now.
I can totally understand that. And when you were mentioning the fact that the design work before, and in the back of my head, I'm like, wow, this is perfect. This is wild.
Yeah.
And isn't it so amazing that nothing that we do in a previous lifetime or in the trajectory to get is ever wasted? We use every little bit of it. I think part of the lesson for me in your story, and it's so powerfully put across, is that be prepared to go and take little side trips and explore here and experiment there and do this. And none of that is ever wasted. It's all working towards this thing. And I really do enjoy that.
And I feel like it's important to mention that, the journey, yes, if you're doing something you're passionate about and it's particularly niche or it's freelance, then of course it's going to be tricky and hard. But certainly from personal experience, I had to diversify along the way to survive. So as a photographer, while I wanted to just photograph animals, I photographed corporate, industrial, food, everything you can imagine as jobs to survive along the way while I was building this up. So there was never a point where you don't want to say no to work that's going to teach you something, that's going to help you get to the journey without, thinking I'm too good to go and do that shoot because this is my path. No, that's every shot that I've done, I've learned something that I can implement into what I do now. So whether it seems off topic or not, there's something you can pull from that. It's experience, and that's only going to benefit you in the future, for sure.
Especially when you're open to that, and I admire that.
Yeah.
So Shannon, we're going to leave the first episode there. I'm extremely excited to get into the next one. We're going to be talking Black Panthers. We're going to be talking cheetah maulings. We're going to be talking jewelry ranges. There's so much more. So make sure you catch us for the next one. Cheers for now. Thank you for staying right to the end of the episode and for joining me on the Enrichment project. Before you go, please share this episode with your friends and your colleagues. They will thank you, I'm sure. Remember that you can catch each Path to Purpose episode by watching on YouTube, or if you prefer, on your favorite podcast app. The link to my book, The Power of Purpose, is in the show notes. Please go and check it out. It's a rad account of my own story of purpose and resilience and my fight against brain cancer. I finished 6 full Ironman events, a number of multi-stage mountain bike races, 9 Ironman 70.3 races, including the Ironman World Championships, and a bunch of other endurance events, all with stage 4 brain cancer, because I wanted it that badly and getting to the finish line meant that much to me. As a professional inspirational speaker, business and life coach, author and storyteller, I'd love to add more value to you or your organization. Please find more details on my website, iamrichardwright.com, and book me today for a live or virtual keynote, a masterclass, workshop, or coaching session, or please follow my journey on Facebook, I Am Richard Wright, Twitter, The Wright Rich, Instagram, I Am Richard Wright, or on LinkedIn. I'd love the opportunity to enrich your team. Thank you to the professional crew at Solid Gold Podcasts for the support, the talent, and the mad skills. And to Anna Hick for her creativity and genius video magic. Thank you. You all rock.